And now everybody loves a good listicle. We just love to categorise our favourite things, and we most certainly enjoy picking other people's lists apart. Now I've been toying around with the idea of doing a massive list of my favourite games of all time, but to be honest it's a pretty hard thing to do, and let's face it, it is pretty boring. So welcome to the pilot episode of the ultimate leaderboard of video games, or Top Infinity as I'm sort of calling it at the moment. Now rather than try and make a big top list of video games in one go, each episode I will be picking 3 thematically linked titles. Now I'll be playing these games, talking about each one, and at the end I'll be placing those 3 games on a leaderboard depending on how much I like them today. Every episode I'll be adding to this infinite leaderboard with another 3 games, and I'll even invite you to suggest the themes and trio of games to add. The result will hopefully be a ranked list of truly superb games that will become more interesting the longer this series goes on. Of course, whether this series goes any further than this pilot is up to you, so please do let me know in the comments if this is something you would like me to keep doing. Now I've gone on long enough for the explanation, so on to the show. Now the 3 games I'm going to be initially adding to this leaderboard are all linked by one thing: ninjas. These stealthy warriors will always be cool, and it's a subject that has truly given us some amazing video games over the years. So let's start with our first entry. When you think of badass video game ninjas, Joe Musashi is a name that should hopefully spring to mind. The initial start of Sega's long-running Shinobi series might not be a household name these days, but in the early ages of gaming he was what most of us visualised when we thought of ninjas. And that's due to releases like The Revenge of Shinobi, a very early Sega Mega Drive release that was intended to be the perfect showcase of what the system could achieve. And 3 decades after its initial release, this early system seller really does encapsulate everything that Sega promised the Mega Drive would do. That is, a console that brings the audio-visual experience of the arcades to your humble living room. This is a game with sizable, well-animated sprites, detailed stages, and most importantly, it is the first game that Yuzo Koshiro worked on for Sega. In a pre-Streets of Rage era, this masterful combination of Japanese musical stylings and electronic dance beats is undoubtedly unappreciated in the shadow of his later works. As for how it plays, it's certainly a step above the original Shinobi, but it's not too much of a departure. It's not an especially speedy game, but there is certainly a focus on perfect timing and a fair amount of trial and error. Make no mistake, you will die often. Do not expect to whack the game onto easy difficulty and sail through all 8 stages. However, for the most part, I wouldn't say that Revenge of Shinobi is necessarily badly designed or particularly unfair, even though it can feel that way after some particularly cruel deaths. This is a game where you must understand Joe's abilities and how to apply them to each enemy in a situation, but you could argue that the gameplay is too reliant on your ability to have absolutely perfect timing in every situation. It's a lesson you need to learn as early as the 2nd stage, where Joe's somersault becomes essential to navigating some truly tough moving platforms, with things being compounded much more during a few nasty leaps of faith. Yes, like many action games of the era, this is a game based on repetition, muscle memory and memorisation of areas and hazards, and needless to say, it is a much tougher game than I remembered it to be. But when you nail those necessary skills, it really is a blast. Moving on now onto one of classic gaming's other popular ninjutsu masters, Ryu Hayabusa from Tecmo's long-running Ninja Gaiden series, namely the Ness original. What strikes you most about this action platformer is the incredible cutscenes that really stood out on a system that wasn't particularly known for story-focused games. Now the in-game visuals are no slouch either. Even with the busy and detailed backgrounds, the similarly detailed sprites are designed in such a way that it's not too much of a struggle to see what's going on. Which is good really because, well, there's usually a lot going on. This is a title that will throw enemies at you every couple of steps you make. In fact, it is one of those early releases that just spawns enemies time and time again when you reach certain areas and then just forgets to stop spawning them at those points unless you keep moving forward. It also loves chucking enemies at you out of nowhere while you're trying to make a particularly long jump. Yeah, like fellow Ness games, Castlevania and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, your main frustrations are not being able to move once you've jumped, being knocked back when hit by an enemy, and a lot of bottomless pits that end in instant death. It is the holy trinity of 8-bit platform design. The fire triangle that illustrates the 3 things needed to make me want to bust a controller in 2. And yeah, despite this series' reputation of being incredibly tough, this first game is quite fair. You've got a liberal number of finite lives, very fair checkpoints and infinite continues. Beating Ninja Gaiden is more than feasible if you have the time and patience. Unlike Revenge of Shinobi, it's one of those games where dying becomes a learning experience and you're not punished for trying different approaches. It's not a game that wastes your time, which is so unlike other similar games of this era. The gameplay has some great pace to it, with responsive controls and simple yet cool actions such as wall jumps. And the gameplay feels pretty damn fun after all this time, and coming back to this title for the first time in many years, it's a better game than my memory has told me. The Nintendo Entertainment System has an abundance of excellent action games, and this one is up there with the best. Our final game of this episode is the Super Nintendo port of Turtles in Time, a game featuring a crew of ninjas that really should need no introduction. Truth be told, outside of the original Eastman and Laird comics, these heroes and a half-shell seem to be ninjas in name only, but who cares about semantics when we are talking about one of the longest running multimedia franchises in recent memory. The 4th of Konami's home console Turtle releases is also the second to be a port of an arcade cabinet. Turtles in Time is not a massive departure from the original arcade smash, but it's arguably a more interesting game thanks to the time travelling plotline giving the developers an excuse to go absolutely crazy with levels, which is a good idea for a rather simplistic belt scroller that makes a very liberal use of palette swap sprites. Now surely you must know how this works. You plug the cartridge in, you boot your console up, and after the title screen you take part in the ultimate personality test of choosing what turtle you want to play as. I usually pick Donatello because his long range bow staff keeps enemies away at a distance, just like how I keep a distance between myself and other people in real life. On the face of it, this is a very simple 2-button arcade port. On paper, if you strip the license away, it still suffers from the same issues of gameplay repetition as practically every other game in the genre. But yet, as a game of arcade length, really not much more than an hour of length, it's a great quick blast, and I was compelled to play it in its entirety from start to finish. Besides, sometimes the situation calls for a brainless brawler, and this is amongst the best out there. Each stage of this crazy adventure through past, present and future is topped off with various gigantic bosses that run the gamut of Turtles villains past and present. I mean, even Tokar and Razar from the Secrets of the Ooze movie make an appearance. Plus, it's not all repetitious walking left to right, as there are also a few bonus levels from surfing through the sewers, avoiding xenomorphic pizza monsters, and even a Mode 7 fuel diversion into the future. The whole package might just be better than the original Ninja Turtle arcade smash. Sadly, this port doesn't feature the 4-player action of either the Turtle arcade cabinets, but even the 2-player mode is fun enough. Ultimately, this is a damn solid port that certainly holds up well today. So that is the 3 ninja related games for our very first ranking session, but where to put them all? Well, I'm going to put Revenge of Shinobi at number 3, for as good as Joe Masashi's second appearance is, I feel that the uneven difficulty really hinders my ability to fully enjoy this game. Which leaves us with 2 games left. And at number 2, I'm going to have to put Ninja Gaiden here, which is not something I could have predicted when picking this theme. I find it to be more forgiving than Revenge of Shinobi, and on the whole, a more enjoyable title. Now that does mean that the top of our leaderboard right now is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. With great graphics, catchy tunes and some incredibly solid fun gameplay, I could not think of a better game to be at the top right now. But do you agree with the ranking as it is? Let me know where you'd put these games in the comments below, and maybe even suggest a set of 3 themed games for the next episode. And as this is a pilot, why not tell me whether or not you want a new episode of this brand new series? That was the very first Top Infinite, and hopefully I'll be back soon with another 3 games to play somewhere on this list.